Thanks for listening to this episode of How I Got Here. If you're looking for more great stories, we've made it easier to find our guests on our new website, hightlh.com. That's HIGHTLH.com. You can search by the order of the episodes, starting with the most recent, by guest name, or by industry category. So explore the website at hightlh.com and decide who else you want to meet today.
I didn't know you couldn't do this because, like, the training, it makes sense, but I had no idea. So there's 3 stations, right? There's vacuuming, there's prep, and then there's the finish after it comes out and the dry.
Wiping it down and everything.
I loved vacuuming because 2 reasons. Number 1, the air was on, and you can sneak a little air. Number 2, the change in the car on the floor. They didn't tell you that you couldn't take that. I had no idea. Because I kind of lived I was 16 years old. I lived
here's a quarter under the seat.
You find this, right? Yeah. I'd have this big mound of change in my pocket.
From Fiore Communications, it's How I Got Here, a show of inspiring stories from Tallahassee area leaders, business owners, and neighbors. All the challenges, opportunities, inspirations, the twists and turns of life that led them to where they are today. Everyone has a story worth telling, and I am really grateful that we get to bring a few of them to you. I truly have been changed by my conversations with these amazing people, and I'm confident you will be too. I'm Dave Fiore, and in this episode, I speak with Matt Thompson, co-founder of For the Table Hospitality, which includes the brands Charlie Park, Social Catering, Township, Social Kitchen, and Madison Social, the heart and soul of College Town. Matt's path from collecting baseball cards as a kid in Orlando to a restaurant entrepreneur has taken a number of unexpected turns. He came to Tallahassee on a trombone performance scholarship to Florida State, eventually earning a degree in public relations and then his master's. He would teach public speaking back home before returning to Tallahassee to take a digital marketing position at the Zimmerman Agency. But when a college buddy offered Matt a chance to be part of a new concept in an undeveloped industrial area in the shadow of Doak Campbell Stadium, he jumped at the chance. And the rest is history, with a side of BLT dip. We started our conversation talking about growing up in Longwood.
Well, my mom grew up in the same house since the 50s, and so they bought the house from my grandparents. I lived a mile away from my high school. I lived maybe, 10 minutes from my middle school and 10 minutes from my elementary school. So everything was fairly close. The very blue-collar neighborhood. Mm. I had a great upbringing. I was an only child. Maybe that's why I was so great. And I was an only child, and my parents supported me in everything, and I was never wanting. Now, we weren't doing vacations and flying all over the world and all the other things in the world, but we would always spend time together and go on road trips, and I played baseball, and they supported me, and I was also in band. And they supported me through everything. But growing up in Longwood, you ride your bike, you go wherever you want to go, and had a baseball card shop real close, so I spent a lot of time there. Yeah. I've recently, by the way, got back into baseball cards. It's super addicting. And
did you have any super old valuable ones from
not really,
back in the day?
Because I was part of the junk wax. So the late 80s, early 90s. And, I had my Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card and a couple other ones.
So no Honus Wagner's in there or anything?
No. But my across-the-street neighbor growing up, and this is probably my fondest memories of where I lived, my across-the-street neighbor was the pitching coach for the Houston Astros. So this is when pitching coaches made, $70,000 a year, which was a ton of money, right?
Sure.
And he had a motorhome, and we would take his motorhome out to Houston for him because that's where he would stay during the season. So my dad and I would drive it out and tow his car for him, and then drive it back, and then drive the car back. And
So he would stay in a motorhome the whole season?
Correct.
For home games?
For home games. And it was just awesome. His wife taught me how to shoot ice, like eat ice and shoot it at the players' wives from the top of the Astrodome. I got to meet Nolan Ryan.
Wow.
I have some really fond memories of him, and his stuff that I touched he showed me all his memorabilia. I mean, you walk in and there's pictures everywhere of just old stuff because he played for the Browns in the 40s and 50s and the White Sox. And he actually managed, I think, the White Sox, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it the St. Louis Browns?
St. Louis Browns at the time,
okay. Yeah.
So he would so when I was a kid, he'd show me his memorabilia, like the good stuff, right? So he has this dresser, and out of a sock, because he would keep the ball in a sock that was signed, and Babe Ruth or Murderer's Row for the Yankees.
Right.
Like, it was awesome to see all this memorabilia.
So you never had a Sandlot situation with
No.
the Babe Ruth ball or anything?
Not at all. No Sandlot situation at all. No Killing Me Smalls. It was, but it was
how
awesome.
cool
to
is
see.
that, though?
Yeah, it's just an experience that, I still talk about today. My dad loves the story of when I met Nolan Ryan when I was like 4 years old at the Osceola Complex for spring training. And then the next year, because we went every year, Nolan Ryan remembered me and said hello. And so my dad still loves that story.
Yeah.
And so, growing up, we would watch, we had that big, back in the day, the big satellite dishes, right? And we had it so we could watch Nolan Ryan pitch for the Rangers. That was an investment that the Thompson family made. And I remember that game when, he had Robin Ventura in the headlock and was beating him.
Oh, yeah. That was a poor choice by Robin.
Poor choice. And I bought that one Father's Day from my dad, that picture signed by Nolan Ryan. Yeah, and so he has it hanging up in his house.
That's really cool. It's amazing what I just heard something about this from something else. A single personal connection from an athlete or somebody that a kid would look up to, what an impact that can have on their life.
100%. I mean, I still remember it. I talk about it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I try to provide my kids, living here in Tallahassee and doing what I do for a living. We get to meet some people and all those other things, and try to do that as much as possible for them, because it's stuff that I remember. And, to your point, it doesn't have to be an athlete. It can be anybody of significance, right? Which, I mean, I guess all of us are significant in our own little ways, right? But, somebody with that prestige or that level, I think it's an awesome opportunity for kids to meet. I also believe every kid should have when I coached Little League and flag football, I always believe that every kid deserves an SRO, a standing room only at some point in time, that ovation, for something that they do. And I think that does a lot for kids as well.
Yeah. So getting back to your time as a kid, did you like school? Did you get good grades? What kind of stuff were you interested in?
Yeah, I got great grades. I was a straight A kid until high school, and then I was really good, particularly at high school, and even my son has this a little bit if he listens to this, that I just need to know where I need to be. My daughter has this too. Like, Mom, what do you expect? 3.6 GP. All right, I'll do 3.7.
Right.
I'm very, or even when I was in college and whatever you had to do to keep your bright futures.
Right.
3.2. I'll do a 3.3.
You ended up coming to Florida State, right? Why Florida State? Why did you choose Tallahassee?
So pretty crazy. A lot of people don't know this. I was on a full classical and jazz performance major scholarship my freshman year. In the music world, way different than like football or sports. I had been recruited since I was in 7th grade to come to Florida State.
What'd you play?
Trombone.
Okay.
And in middle school, I was all state, and for a couple years I was all state classical and jazz. Professor Dr. John Drew formed a relationship with me since I was in like 7th or 8th grade.
Wow.
And we, whatever he'd see me, we'd stay in touch. I'd come up to FSU for music camps or whatever, and I wanted to come and I wanted to learn from him. And so I came up to FSU. I had to do an audition for classical and jazz.
Yeah.
And my Jazz lasted a little longer. It wasn't as natural to me, which is kind of weird because I find myself being slightly creative. It's just it wasn't as natural to me. And I probably had more passion for it, but I don't think I was as good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know I wasn't as good at it. And then and on the classical side, I played 15 seconds, and they told me to stop, and they said you have a full ride. So it was I played Flight of the Bumblebee, if I remember, and
That's pretty fast on a trombone.
correct.
More of a flute kind of thing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Generally.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I played, I literally played like 15, 20 seconds, and I was done. And I didn't even know because I just kind of like everybody was not writing or doing anything. I just put it down and go, "Am I done?" They're like, "You're good." And I'm like, "Thanks." And then I had to do the thing. So I was on.
So that's why you came here.
Yeah, I was on full jazz and classical.
Okay.
And then I had my Bright Futures, and then Florida prepaid because that was like, I don't know, $65 a month for my parents.
So you were pretty well covered.
Man, I made money my first year.
Yeah.
But I quickly found I didn't have a true passion for it. As I say, I didn't really like hanging out in a room like this that we're in right now by myself for 6 hours a day.
Yeah, I was a music major at FSU.
So, you
a little
know-
different experience for me.
Yeah.
I was on probation. They barely let me in.
Okay.
I wasn't very good. But I was in the program.
Right.
And thought I was going to be a band director. And but no, the practice rooms in the dungeon
You know
of the
exactly-
college of music smells weird.
Oh, yeah.
Just a weird place to spend a huge chunk of your life.
And I hated it. Like I wanted to have a more social experience. And I don't know why. Man, also, shocker, your and I's life has a lot of parallels to it. And because I went off to be a PR major.
Yeah.
And, you know.
All right, so how did you end up in PR? Why did you choose that as a path?
I honestly don't know, man. I think it was the whole people person thing. I enjoyed organizing people to do something. You know, I've always been that guy. Everybody, even to this day, I swear to God, for my son's travel ball team, if I don't organize dinner, I don't think we'll all eat. Like, it's I just have that natural gravitation toward organizing things for people to do.
Right.
You know, and that's what I thought when I heard public relations. I was like, that's what it is. You know, I had no idea that it, you know, it was like managing media and reputation and all the other things. I just was like, I'm good at organizing people to do things. And that's where I went off and went and you know, and then I went through the program. I refused to do an internship that didn't pay me for whatever reason. I have no idea why. I was on scholarship. My parents paid my rent. It wasn't like it was like I needed the money per se. And I had this hard line, which is funny because I have unpaid interns now. Terrible. And I would, and so I did it at Harris Management Group.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Association management.
Association management. Yeah. And I did that, and because they paid me, and I probably was a terrible employee or a terrible intern. It was just check the box, show up.
Well, plus a teeny bit more.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and get
that you add.
Correct. Get my $6 an hour, you know, and teeny bit more, right? Yeah,
teeny bit more.
And I did it, and then I was graduating, and then I was like, holy crap, a PR major makes like $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
You know, and you, I don't know, your job opportunities at that time were like work at the Humane Society or something like that. Like it was, you know, like about these passion, like that's,
right.
You know, and I was like,
Right.
I don't want to do any of this. I have like, I don't want to, no, I don't, you know. And so Dr. Rayburn told me about at that time, it was an organizational communication new master's program that it was relatively new. And he said, you can go for free. And only thing you need is a GRE. Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah, GRE. And so I had to go take that. And I got in, and they, you know, they paid me to teach, like be a TA for public speaking. And I did research stuff and all of it just, I don't know why, again, money. But I started to really understand that I don't like doing things for free. I like doing things for money. And as I started to track back in my life, and I tell students this, even when I was growing up, I think life leaves you some breadcrumbs, right, to who you are. I would check the couches at my house every day to find new change.
From your family.
From my family, right? I was enthralled with counting money. I don't know why. And then baseball cards. I was in my Beckett, knowing I updated with stickers all my cards every month. That if it went from 8 cents to 11 cents, there was a new sticker that I put on. My first job, I worked at a car wash in the summer in North Orlando. God, it was brutal.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you couldn't do this because like the training, it makes sense, but I had no idea. So there's 3 stations, right? There's vacuuming, there's prep, and then there's the finish after it comes out and the dry.
Wiping it down and everything.
I loved vacuuming because 2 reasons. Number 1, the air was on. And you could sneak a little air. Number 2, the change in the car on the floor. They didn't tell you that you couldn't take that. I had no idea. Because I kind of lived like, I was 16 years old. I lived like,
here's a quarter under the seat.
You find this, right? Yeah. I'd have this big mound of change in my pocket.
Did your boss ever find out?
Well, eventually, not on me, but somebody else, because somebody left a 20 down or something like that, and whoever was vacuuming took it, and then they got fired because it was like a test or whatever the case may be. I was like, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, that makes sense. The pound of change I would never take. If I found a 20, I would give it back to the person, right? But if the pound of change I had at the end of each day, Dave, I'm not lying, it would bruise my leg because it would just sit there and hit me. I was like, this is great. And you'd run to the gas station and get a Mountain Dew. And, that was great. But that's why I loved it.
Yeah.
And now, as I look, things start adding up a little bit on life and how it is. But I took out my business partner and I, we met at public speaking in 1997, and we both got our masters together.
Right.
And we took out student loans for no reason. No, we didn't need it. We just golfed every day and ate steak at Marie Livingston's, but it quickly became something that was really a part of me. And I don't know if that makes me shallow or I have no idea, but it's certainly to this day, it's still, I have a list every year that I put 5 things that I'm going to try and do for the year. Not really resolutions, but more, these are the things I want to work on.
Right. Right.
My list, you want to hear it?
Sure. Yeah. Let's get the list.
Let's see if I have it. Commit to better communication and time with parents.
Okay.
That was on my list. My parents live here, and I don't know, life gets in the way. You see each other like maybe once every 2 weeks and talk for an hour. And you're like, well, you live here. What are we doing?
Right.
And that's been accomplished. My mom's had some health issues, so therefore I've seen her every day for the last 60 days. So therefore it's accomplished, unfortunately for health issues, but it's accomplished. Push my son academically. We've baseball family, but academics we need to push as well. That's happened. More thoughtful gifts for the people I love, and put time into what you're actually doing.
Right.
Support my daughter unconditionally within reason, and not try to, because she's going off to college this year. So I'm trying not to be molding her into. She's not somebody that when I get asked for FSU to come in and guest speak. And I sit there and I talk and I don't treat her like that, because in that sense I have an hour and whatever I talk about or whatever questions they have, and they can choose to do what I say or not, or I don't really care.
Yeah.
What is Dr. Rayburn said, when somebody buys your advice, they also buy the right to not take it, which I'm terrible at.
Right.
And so, and the last one is find a hobby unrelated to money, a true enjoyment. I haven't done that.
Say that.
I've done that, not even close. So
yeah,
that's the one I'm failing on right now.
Yeah. All right. So after you graduate, you go and take a job back home, right, in the Orlando area.
Correct. I was, the way I describe it, so in, going through our master's program, I ended up switching my master's. I completed the organizational communication, and then there was this other one called interactive communication and new information technology.
Okay.
Very long, good Lord. And Dr. Dale Brill, and him and I had become close, and my business partner, and he's like, you should switch to this. I'm like, all right, I can get another football season out of this. This sounds amazing. And I mean, none of it was academically driven, by the way. This was all...
It wasn't your love of learning.
No, it was... FSU was really good at football. And that's what I tell actually, that's where I start when students will ask, should I get my master's or should I get my MBA or whatever? I always start with, are you mature enough to leave Tallahassee? Because I was not. I still went out every Thursday night on the Strip. I loved Tallahassee. Part of that's probably because I was late. I started college when I was 17. And so I turned 21. I was official, my senior year.
Right.
And so I think I needed a little bit more time to marinate in the Tallahassee,
Legal drinking time?
Correct.
That's what we're saying?
Legal drinking time.
Right.
And it was, and we, like I said, we were really good at football. 1999.
It's a good time.
Yeah. And then 2000 was my last year, and because I graduated in December of 2000. But my program was wired for you to go to PricewaterhouseCoopers or Anderson Consulting at the time. Those were the two main ones. And they flew me in. I did the whole cattle call at Seminole Futures, and then I did the interview, and I got through that, flew me down, 1 of 10. I'm like, this is this is what everybody does from this program.
To be some sort of business consultant.
Correct.
Yeah. Because they're big 6 accounting firms, right?
Correct. And they were getting into technology consulting, right? And so what they needed ultimately was how can you the communication process of being able to talk to a C-level executive, but also the tech guy. Right. And that's kind of what the master's degree was built around. And understanding business parts to that as well. And so I was like, man, I'm going to have my choice. I got denied from both of these places. The recruiter for Price Waterhouse, I was able to talk to her in 2 years because she got canned, and somehow through a mutual person who they did hire, circled back to me for trying to help get a job in Orlando, which was wild, right? Because I'm like, by the way, why did you not choose me? She said, honestly, everybody thought that you were too laid back. And I was like, oh, that's fair. Now that I look back on it, I was kind of the guy that like sits back in the chair and leans back. I was probably a terrible interview. I honestly was terrible, probably used a lot of golf analogies or something like that.
Right.
And so I got denial letters. One of them I kept. I think the Anderson Consulting, my parents framed it for me. And I used to have it on my desk at home. I don't know where it is now. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I was interviewing. I interviewed over the phone with somebody in Ireland because broadband was booming at the time over there, and so therefore, I was like, shit. Sorry.
You can say.
Okay. I was like, man, but I was like, I would crush my mom. I'm only child, and I'm like, I won't come home. I know, once I go.
Yeah.
And that was a thought of mine. And then I just reached out to one of my high school best friends, and he was a developer at a very small software company that made case management software for law firms. And he's like, we need a sales marketing person. And that's what I did. And that was my first job. And I didn't know what to do. I gave myself my own title. I was director of marketing. Right?
Okay, that's a good title.
Directed nobody. Myself. I had no idea. But they weren't doing the blocking and tackling, right? I mean, this is where traditional media is about your only option, other than search was coming up at the time. And so it just go to trade shows, follow up communication,
the basics
of but putting in some basics, I was able to raise revenue 92% in 18 months. And that became the part of my resume that allowed me to kind of progress in my career.
Wow.
Because that stood out, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, how do you do that? What did you do? And
and almost double business in a year and a half.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I was like everybody else in the world. And I say this to people, young people, that when we hire them, I'm nice as sledgehammer, pretty honest, right? I go, look, the odds of you being here longer than 2 years, I hope you are, but are pretty slim to none. When you hire somebody young, because that's the design. And I go, two things are going to happen. You're going to want more money than I'm not willing to pay. And the other thing is you're going to think you know more than me. And you're going to think that this place will shut down without you. Right? That's a very common thing that happens in people's career. And because that was mine. Mm-hmm. I thought I knew everything. And I thought, and guess what? Matt Thompson goes away tomorrow. Everything for the Table Hospitality I know is going to keep going, Right. And those are the things you start to learn is that you're just a cog in the wheel a little bit. Now, some of us are better cogs, right?
Bigger cogs.
Or bigger cogs, right? But at the same time, things have inertia and they're going to keep going.
Yeah. Right. So at some point, I guess you left the software company and started teaching.
Yeah, it was kind of like serendipity, I guess you could say. Here I am, I'm leaving the software company. My buddy and I, who hired me, were both going to leave. And at the same time, I had been teaching after college, adjuncting, public speaking. I mean, it was a great way to make a car payment or whatever, some side money. And Valencia Community College asked me if I wanted to do it full time. And so at my height, I was teaching 12 classes a semester, which is unheard of.
That's a lot.
But it worked out. I was Monday, Wednesday, Friday at UCF. I eventually moved to UCF full time. I had adjunct at Valencia Tuesday, Thursday mornings, and just back to back to back. I taught public speaking, so the students do 60% of the work. You don't right? Because you have to listen to the speeches. And then I taught at night at Seminole Community College at the time. It just worked out. I got to do some stuff on the UCF campus because of that. And that's the reason why I was able to, when I decided, they decided for me essentially that I wasn't going to teach there anymore, I could have stayed on for a little while, but I wasn't going to have anything for a long-term contract. And they made that decision for me, and I went off and I got went to the public sector.
Okay.
Or the private sector, sorry. And I worked at a small 50-ish person digital marketing agency.
Okay.
So
in Orlando.
And Knoll grad, didn't know him, but he was a Knoll grad and he had started a digital agency.
Okay.
And man, I was there for 9 months. My pay changed 3 times, my pay structure. And so I'm like, this is not the path. And ended up interviewing here for the Zimmerman Agency.
Yeah.
And that's what brought me to Tallahassee.
So is the job, and before we get up here, I want to talk about your wife, Lindsay, a little bit. So it was during that period that you met. Did you meet in Orlando?
Yeah, we met in Orlando. She'll hate this story. We went out. We had mutual friends. She went to people. In fact, this is wild. My last roommate in Tallahassee was her best friend when she was 14 years old. And so go back home, after graduation, and we're all going out in Orlando, Wall Street area, downtown, and I meet her. She was the one that asked me out, by the way. That's the part she hates. And
is she going to dispute that, or she just doesn't like it?
I think she doesn't like it. I don't know if she's going to hardcore dispute it, but she definitely asked me out.
Okay.
It was more of a mutual. It was like something like, if you asked me out, I wouldn't say no type of thing.
Yeah, that's asking you that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's the gray area of asking me out. And so we went out. I was the worst first date ever, but I called her the wrong name.
Okay, that's not a good start.
Not good. And I think multiple times. And she, she liked sushi, and I love sushi now. My wife brings out a lot of things in me over the years, and I had never even had sushi, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go someplace and get, I'll get the hibachi meal or whatever. And so we go to this place, and like she orders all this sushi, and I was like, oh, sweet. I have no idea. I don't know anything about it. And then she orders like a meal. I was like, holy crap, what's going on? At that time, I was like, this is gonna be $150. Oh shit. And then it was a bumpy few months, as you can imagine, and then we were off and running. And so, and we lived with each other relatively quick, man. I mean, within probably 6 to 9 months of first dating, and then we've been together ever since.
That's awesome. So you come to Tallahassee for family reasons, for the whole
correct
everything that's going on there, and you're like, we're not doing this. So you just answer an ad for the Zimmerman Agency?
Monster.com.
Okay.
So I get up, whatever work was ending, or I took off a little early on that Friday. Mm-hmm. I drove to Tallahassee on a Friday night. On the way, I was meeting with 2 people from Zimmerman, and we were meeting at Outback, right there off of I-10. And I remember how Outback used to be bumping, right? It used to be the place.
Oh, yeah.
I think it won like best steak in Tallahassee like 15 years in a row or something like that, which I don't know if is great or bad. Hopefully.
It's not the most discerning taste.
Correct.
Always.
Well, so clearly you're not looking for Outback to be your sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by Outback. Where discerning diners go for the best steak in town. Sorry, Drew.
And we went, yes, hi, Drew. So we were meeting there, and I remember they did call ahead seating. So I did it just to, and I get there. Andy Jaroshik walks up and he goes, this place is packed. Let's go somewhere else. And I go, oh, no, I just did call ahead seating. We're good. We're going to be sat in 15 minutes. He goes, you're hired. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, anybody that thinks that like that and far ahead and anticipates, we want somebody like that on our team. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't true that I was hired. We went through 2 to 3 hours of conversation. Sure. And then I went home. I was home probably that night at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I got back from Orlando.
I had Carrie on a couple episodes ago.
Okay.
Yeah, she has quite a fascinating story as well.
She is a brilliant businesswoman, man. She is, you know what they taught me more than anything else? Open door policy. Mm-hmm. They never, so this is my favorite story of my time at Zimmerman. And it's kind of how I approach our businesses now. We were pitching the Ritz-Carlton and in Orlando. So a lot of times if we were in Orlando, my wife would come down to Orlando or go down and then stay at my parents' house, and then we would stay a long weekend or whatever the case may be. And so we go down to, I meet the team at Denny's, I remember, if I remember correctly.
That's a good choice.
Right before, because it's right around the corner from where we're pitching. And we get to Ritz-Carlton, and so you got a room to prep. We're one of 4 agencies or something along those lines.
Right.
My wife calls me hysterically crying, and I'm like, "What's going on?" I'm pregnant, and I'm like, because this was not planned, right? Here we are. Our daughter at the time my kids are 15 months apart, and so like. Okay. Yes.
So a bit of a surprise.
A bit of a surprise. And we were a young couple moving to a new town in which she didn't know anybody. She had these visions of growing up with her best friend, and our kids are the same age, and all that was removed. We're 4 hours north, and she didn't love Tallahassee, and I don't know if I loved Tallahassee when we first started. And long story short, here she is crying, and I go to Curtis, and I go, hey, man, my wife just called me that I'm pregnant, and it's not good, and this isn't planned, and the whole thing. He goes, calm down, everything will be all right. Don't worry about it. And so we do the pitch, get done. They go their separate ways because I'm in Orlando, so I'm going to go visit. And he, when he lands, leaves me a voicemail of 2 minutes, and he says, hey, on the flight, I was just thinking about you, and you're going to get through this. Everything will be okay. Our last kid wasn't planned. Like, gives me the whole story, right? And this whole thing. And it was just such a human touch to the whole, and I'll never forget that. And that's kind of what I try to do. It comes somewhat naturally for me anyways, but it's kind of what I try to do with anybody that works with us, is you can't be a great employee if your personal life is in disarray.
Right.
Like that just doesn't, I'm sorry. As much as we want to say that business and personal and business and all that, the most personal thing we do is business. And so I totally remember that and cherish that moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we'll be right back. How I Got Here is sponsored by Barano Heating and Air Conditioning in Tallahassee. I've been friends with Patrick Barano since we met in a chamber leads group about 15 years ago. I'll admit that I pursued him pretty hard to be his marketing firm and eventually won him over. And the reason I wanted to work with him is that I was already a customer and I knew what kind of company he and his father before him had built. He cares about his customers, he cares about his team, and he cares about this community. I've experienced Barano Heating and Air when they installed a complete system replacement a few years ago, and I enjoy peace of mind and same-day service with my Total Comfort Service Agreement. I've also been behind the scenes at their office and seen firsthand the true character of this company, and that's why we're so proud to represent them. To learn more or to schedule an appointment online anytime, visit baranoac.com. They really always will be there for you. And now back to the show. All right, so how did you get connected? You touched on it a little bit with your partner in grad school, but tell us the story about how you got connected with the concept that would become Madison Social.
Okay. So we met in grad school, like I said. Public speaking. So we're in undergrad. We're just two fat idiots in the back of the room. Like, no lie. We would sit in a different ball room, and the chalkboard was on the back, and we were on the back, and we would sit underneath it with our shoulders and try and break the bottom of the chalkboard. You know, I don't know why. So we just struck up a friendship. We worked out together. We hung out together, got our masters together, and then he went back up northeast. Mm-hmm. I went to Orlando, as you know, and obviously we stayed in contact. He was in my wedding, and then 2011. He's down his bar, and I knew this. You know, I didn't know for sure, but he was part of the bar. He had reinvented himself. He came out and he did data admin or network admin for Prada.
Okay,
you know, so he was working for a high level fashion company, and by the way, he's the least Prada guy you ever meet, And he kind of went in a fork in his road where he was guest bartending. He was actually doing like some stand-up stuff, like he's, you know, just in New York. And the owner of this place asked if he wanted to join the team and no longer be with Prada. He goes, well, you're going to start at the bottom and all this stuff. And he kind of reinvented himself. Mm-hmm. And so he became like an owner of this other place, part owner. And one of the things that he did, which was so smart, was the major cities, right, have all these clubs. Mm-hmm. And New York, he became the Knoll Bar. And so, so when the boosters were in town for anything, they would go watch basketball or whatever the case may be. And he struck up a relationship, and then they told him about this thing that they were doing down in Tallahassee. And so Oklahoma 2011, if you remember that game, one of the loudest that Doak has ever seen. Yep. Unfortunately, we lost, but we're tailgating together, and he's like, I'm going to go talk to them about this new project that they have over there. And I'm like, over there? Like, what is going
there's
on?
Nothing.
Yeah, there's nothing. Like, it's an industrial wasteland. And, or as I describe it to people, where you wouldn't be after 7 o'clock at night, typically. And he said, and he's like, I'm going to meet with this guy named Ed Murray. I go, well, that's my cousin. And
Ed Murray's your cousin?
Ed Murray's my cousin, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Him and my mom are first cousins.
Okay.
So I guess he'd be my second cousin, I believe.
I've never understood the cousin structure.
Me either. And my kids call him uncle. So I have no idea. Yeah. He went in and pitched like 6 months, got interested in the project. Mm-hmm. We didn't really talk about it. 6 months later, came back. He was pitched the concept of no name or anything like that, and they loved it. And he basically said, I'm not going to live here. Do you want to be my local partner, and do you want to run the brand and all that other stuff? And so I consulted a while, while I was at day job at Zimmerman, and then was doing some consulting and picking up other stuff, and I became 100% debt free other than my house, and I've never looked back. And so I viewed this opportunity as just, I'll stay at Zimmerman and this will be my new side hustle.
Right.
And we opened to something that I think Tallahassee had never seen before.
Talk about what the original vision of Madison Social was.
So it was going to be, the original thing was obviously, upscale pub fare. So from that standpoint, and that we still hold true to that.
Right.
But the original vision from a marketing standpoint was to catch shrapnel. We knew Urban Outfitters was coming next to us, and we were like, that brand is, wow. And then across the street from us was going to be this monstrosity called America's Backyard, which is in Fort Lauderdale. And it was going to be a 4-story music venue. And I was like, how do we just capture the people right in between us? And turns out that never came. And Urban Outfitters was, I don't know, a year or two after we opened.
Yeah.
And now we're on an island, right? And so to this day, I still think about our places. And I was even talking to a guy who owns a baseball card shop here in town. I think of space as an event space first, and so how can we activate different parts? And so that's kind of what we did. And I one of the things I believe is the internet allowed us to do is build anticipation better than anything, right? You see it with movies is the best way. Back in the day when you and I, right, they wouldn't market a movie except for 30 days before or so because you didn't have the budget to market it. Now they show you a little clip of a YouTube edit 2 years before, and they get you fired up and they build it up and build anticipation. And so that's what we did. We build anticipation on what we did. We really focused on our online. The minute we had a logo, I was online with a Facebook page, and we just built anticipation, and then we opened and then had a hell of a football season. That certainly didn't help. It was 2013,
right,
or didn't hurt,
right.
And in December of that year, I left Zimmerman, the most naive thing I ever did in my life, because I had never been through a Tallahassee summer. Like in the restaurant, I think all in.
So you were cranking in the fall. You said this is going to be great.
It is awesome. This is going to be, And and so I left, and then I just can't believe it. I can't believe that I left. Again, when I look back on it, it's the most naive thing that I ever did. Knowing what I know now about this industry, I can't believe I did that.
But you survived it.
Clearly, yeah. And I got back to my hustle, and then I started getting back teaching more, and worked. Got on board at Flagler, where I was. For whatever reason, they gave me an entire program to build, and I
came in and spoke to your podcast.
Yes, you did.
Classes a couple times.
Yes, and you've hired some interns and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got back to the hustling side of things, but I don't like being called a restaurateur. I hate that, because a restaurateur is John, who owns Ricardo's. John, I just ran into yesterday at the baseball card store, and he was like, "Man, I've been up since 4 a.m. I had a huge catering, and we closed the week of July 4th, so they can regroup and kind of dead zone in Tallahassee anyway, and that's my week off, and so all the caterings I did this week because of special session, I think I made up for that week, and all that. That guy, that's a restaurateur,
right?
Not me.
Yeah,
I'm a marketer at heart and a business guy. That
right.
just so happens I can apply these skills to that industry.
Well, let's talk about, so MadSo is, as it is affectionately known,
correct,
is it's bigger than just the food and the drink. It's trivia nights, it's T-shirts. Tell me about the T-shirts. You just dropped a new one yesterday.
Oh yeah, we did, for FSU baseball.
Yeah, so it obviously you're creating a brand that envelops the community more than just a place to go eat and drink.
Right. And over the years, I think it's changed. Some of the things that have changed in Tallahassee is, I think, forced our hand to change. When you look at the landscape of Tallahassee in 2013, College Town wasn't even College Town. It was MadSo, right? And with Recess above, and one strip of apartment complex.
Right.
Gain Street still had Gain Street. There was no Bannerman on the northeast side of town. Market Street was effectively almost dead. I mean, they were shutting it down and they were going to start redeveloping it. Midtown was on life support at the time. I mean, it was a way different time. And nowadays, I don't know where you live, but I live up northeast.
Me too.
I wouldn't back then. Okay, drive 20 minutes to yeah, whatever. No, not now. Yeah. Like, how many different options do we have? That we are really starting to bubbleize in Tallahassee more than used to be. 4 pieces of the pie, right? Used to have south side, west side, east side, northeast, or 5 and northwest, right? Now there's little pockets developing in with the pockets, and so I bring that up. It's just because we've changed. We were very community focused, like all of Tallahassee back then. And now I think we're really focused on the FSU community. And that's really which we always were. And I would say that was number 1.
Right.
But now that's really where we're focused. And you know, people kind of give us crap. I guess you could personally take it me because I make the decisions. Of sometimes where we're not involved in things we used to be from a Tallahassee standpoint. And I don't know, call it maturation, call it COVID fatigue. Honestly, it's 5 years now, but COVID made me readjust a lot of the things that I thought was important for the brand, me, all of it.
Right.
And I just, because I nearly lost everything.
Yeah.
You know? And I just was like, you know what? I'm not going to live out here on this island of whether it's my personal beliefs or whatever. And you really started to learn that there's this other group of people. It's not just the brand and consumers, right? There's your employees. And you can't go out and say something from the brand that they don't all respect. That's not really fair to them. And so I think, you know, through COVID and certain things that happened, you know, all throughout the country, we just kind of said, you know what, we're just going to be pretty FSU centric.
Right.
You know,
I want to talk about the expansion into For the Table hospitality, which in addition to Madison Social, like you said, Township, Charlie Park, Social Catering, and Social Kitchen.
Yeah.
Right? So talk about the evolution and the decision-making process for developing those brands and how they are grown and managed because they're very different.
Correct.
Serve very different audiences. So how did the short version of how that all came to be and how you managed that whole puzzle?
So first off, I want to make it clear that I don't do this alone. We have a great partnership level on different partners on different things, but we have a great leadership team that, and I'm not trying to sound corny. We literally have some bumps here and there, but like we kind of have our lanes. People is the thing we all talk about. Like we have a shared common belief in people. Like we would never let somebody just go off and hire a manager willy-nilly without all of our input. Okay. So people is where we all come together. And we have, like you mentioned, Catering, our second company that we opened. Angela Walker is my partner in that. She's a phenomenal man. I've never met a person that is more direct and can tell you what she wants. And God, I respect her for that. And we have Brian, my main partner. So him and I and his wife Katie are kind of in everything. Brian's great at process, and he's great at also handles all the construction or maintenance type things. Katie's a brilliant designer. She handles also all menu-driven things. And so that's kind of where and then Catering has its own vibe and Social Kitchen. So we kind of have some ins and outs. But really how we grew was through brand and people. The decision to change to have Catering was pretty simple. I mean, there was a day. So in our business, the only way that you're going to make money, well, make the plus money, is how do you get beyond your 4 walls? There's an old saying in the restaurant business that the first turn is for the rent, the second turn is for the rest of your bills, and the third turn is for you. Okay.
And by turn you mean flipping tables?
Flipping tables. Okay. So, and that's pretty tried and true.
Okay.
You know, the industry operates on 10% bottom line, you know, right. 8 to 12. Sometimes you can get a little bit up there to the 15 world. Well, Catering operates close to 20 to 25. And if you can operate outside of your four walls, particularly on days, and that's the tricky part, right? Because as I say, God only gives us 104 Fridays and Saturdays a year. And that's when everybody wants to go out. That's also when everybody wants to have an event. So it's a tricky thing to be able to run a restaurant and do catering when people want it.
Right.
So it's a lot of stress on staff. Also, on top of that, from a brand perspective, back then, the only thing that we knew, when you think catering, you think weddings. Who the hell wants Madso to do your wedding, right? You might get a BLT dip in there because of nostalgia, but you're not going to do a plated, burger wedding. It's not really what we. Right. So catering, and then we had two of the best people in Tallahassee, Angela Walker and Amanda Morrison. Was with us, and from a catering and event perspective, and we built the whole company around them. Mm-hmm. And they took off. I give them all the credit. Like, we just helped with some, some of the things that we've learned and some experiences and things like that. But they took off. Yeah. And Township was kind of the same way. At the time, everybody wanted to be Madso. Everybody wanted to design the space like Madso. Kudos to, again, my partner, Katie. Everybody wanted to have a brand like Madso, right? And how they were doing things, whether they were taking guest bartending like we kind of created or whatever, which is fine. I don't really care. We didn't invent the thing. We just kind of did it first, right? And I was like, I don't want the competitor across the street to be another Madso. It's got to be different. And so that's the reason why we took on that project.
Yeah.
It was really more brand focused. Social Kitchen was a brand change. So just like Madso to catering, right, needed to have a different brand because of wedding, we have our same clients in catering aren't using us for lunch because we're known as white glove, full service, hot catering. Well, we can do lunches for 10 for the boardroom, you know?
Right.
And so we created a brand for that to leverage our same, and that, and then Charlie Park obviously has to be a different brand, and that's a relationship with the hotel. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. You're on top of a hotel on the 8th floor. You need to have something that is elegant, and the greatest compliment, and again, this goes back to Katie, that I think anybody says is when they walk in, they go, "This feels like something. I don't feel like I'm in Tallahassee."
Right.
And that to me is kind of where we want to live.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is branding focused and people focused, and also the type of person you need to run Charlie Park is way different than the type of person that you need from Madso, which is way different from Township.
Right.
You know, so we're really people and brand driven, probably more so than anything else.
Well, speaking of FSU and fans and everything, I don't think we can leave this conversation without talking about your fanhood of FSU sports.
Okay. I love everything about Florida State. I believe Jesus is buried underneath Doak Campbell Stadium. I am diehard. I'm a season ticket holder for football, baseball, basketball, softball, and I love everything about what the garnet and gold represents, the unconquered spirit. It gave me some of the best years of my life. I say it all the time. I get to own one of the premier places looking at Doak Campbell Stadium with my best friend. That's a pretty awesome thing to come full circle with. I hope to leave a legacy. I'm happy that we're in the DNA of Florida State, and I think we got there relatively quickly. And I hope we leave a legacy that is something that's that everybody. The stories I love, man, to be honest, is when somebody says to me they had their first meal on their visit at Madso, and then they had their last before they left town. You know, and then sometimes we get to do their wedding with the catering company.
Yeah.
But those are the things that I love, and I absolutely adore FSU sports. It breaks my heart more so than I feel like that. You know, and as I get older, I'm probably a little less passionate than I used to be. I think we all get that way, you know, over time. You see too much and you're
too much heartbreak.
Yeah, you see a 2-10 season and you're like, oh, okay. All right, well. What I love is when fans get really pissed, right, about it. I'm like, no, it really affects my life.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this isn't like.
How do you feel about noon football games?
Oh, those suck. That was It was funny when we first did that, and we said noon games suck. People are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just a fan," and they suck. Like they're not good for us, really.
They're bad for the local economy.
They're bad for the local.
But it sucks just to sit
It sucks. And I used to be the tailgate guy. Like we tailgated under the Oaks, and I was the guy that set it all up. So I'd have to get there like 6 a.m. and I'm like, this blows. This is the worst experience ever. And then take it all down, and And I hated noon games forever. And so when we came out with noon games suck, that was personal, buddy.
So how do Lindsay and the kids fit into this fandom and this part of your life that you're so passionate about? Are they on board with that?
Well, as my wife says, she knows she's a Gator.
Oh.
She's a Gator.
Does that cause problems?
Nah, used to. Well, again, when I was younger, I used to say I don't really like her for 4 months out of the year. But she knows where, as she says, I know where my bread is buttered. And I think she has come, and I think it helps because they sucked for so long. Granted, we're not that far behind, but she kind of lost a little bit of her passion, and so we can now easily sit in the same room. She
on
is
Thanksgiving weekend?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, I went to 27 straight Gator games. I broke the streak 2 years ago.
Okay.
My daughter is she followed her mom, but she's going to Alabama now which is going to be weird for the first game. But she's going to Alabama now come this fall, and my son's a Knoll. And so, but I think we move along fairly well. Like my wife will come with me to every baseball game that I go to, or every softball game, and so she comes with me to all of them. And she doesn't wear garnet and gold. If you see her, she's in black shirt and white shorts or something along those lines.
Right.
And if we play the Gators, she typically won't be overt, but she'll have earrings on that are Gators or something along those lines. So she's respectful, right?
A respectful dissident.
Right, of what we're trying to accomplish here in Tallahassee.
All right, well, 2 last questions. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man.
All right, Matt, looking back, what is the one thing or person that has changed or altered the trajectory of your life to this point?
My partner, Brian McKenna. That's the easiest, there's a lot of people, but my partner, Brian McKenna, if he wouldn't have asked me to be his local partner, I don't know. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And he allowed me to have a lot of latitude and kind of allowed me 90+% to be in my lane and to do the things that we have done to be able to grow the brand to where it is. I joke, but I certainly there's obviously not an apples to apples correlation here, but Madso is rarefied air for a brand. It's the Disney of Tallahassee. I got it like there's FSU. And then there's Madso. And FSU, FAMU, right? I would argue sometimes Madso is probably better known than TSC, and some of the larger brands that are known to Tallahassee. We are, and he allowed us to have that latitude to get there. And so I'm forever grateful. I for sure would have a different life. I don't know if it would be not successful, and I don't know if I am successful, but it wouldn't be what it is, certainly. And I love my life. I love every bit of my life. And so that would be the person that I'm most grateful for, probably, because without that confidence, I don't know what I would be doing.
All right, final question. The podcast is called How I Got Here. So we've talked about how you got to this point in your life. Where do you think here might be for you in 3 to 5 years from now?
Oh, man, that's an interview question. I already told you I was a terrible interviewer.
That's it.
Man, in 3 to 5 years, we're not looking to. There's one brand that we're interested in growing a little bit, which is Social Kitchen. That being said, we'll see what the next 3 to 5 years comes. I think life is coming at a rapid pace for all of us. We're ranging from 40 to 50 years old. parents are getting older. Kids are getting older. You know, that's where I always start when people ask me, because I'll get peppered with, you should do this, all the time. And I'm like, well, let me start with my partner's lives are in a different place than mine. And so I would never force a project. Mm-hmm. We talk about it sometimes with MADSO specifically. It's got 11 or 12 years on its lease. That sounds like a lot of time, but it's not a lot of time. So are we going to want to sign a new lease? I have no idea, So the next 3 to 5 years, I think we're chugging along. I think when you start looking 5 to 10, we're really going to have to make some decisions as to, how we want to be involved, and do we want to be involved, and do we want to sell, do we want to keep, what are we going to do? And personally, man, I just want to collect baseball cards. I got to be honest with you, I just love I'm deep into baseball cards right now, and love watching my son play baseball, and love the journey that my daughter's going on. Her graduation party, I watched her work a room, buddy, that 300 people in, that I know I couldn't do. People think I'm good at that. They think I'm like the guy that works them. No. She worked the room. She's going to take over the world. And then, my son, I'm really interested where baseball takes him. As a dad, I hope one day, which the landscape is totally different, but maybe he keeps grinding at it, and in his junior, senior year, maybe he gets to don the garnet and gold. He might not play, but at least he gets to wear the uniform, right?
It'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, and so I'm super excited to see where his journey takes him. So that's I'm much more not in the business world of what's in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm way more in the personal world. And then, I'm sure you went through this, whether you call it struggle or whether you call it an enlightenment or whatever happens with, now we have 2 kids out of the house. So what is the next step for Matt and Lindsay? My thing is I've always wanted to chase weather. I think you and I have talked about this before. Like, I want to go live in Montana in the summer, and then go down to Lake Oconee in the fall type of thing. Or here a little bit, obviously, on home games. I just want to chase weather. It's June and we're in Tallahassee, right? This is miserable.
This isn't the place to be.
I don't want to be here. I do not want to be here whatsoever, in the summer. So that's kind of like, what's the next iteration for us of finding ourselves, because so much of our life is around our kids. And I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it whatsoever. But the minute we can get them off the payroll a little bit, how are we going to live?
Thanks for listening to the show. You can subscribe at Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review. It really does make a difference. Thanks to my amazing staff at Fiore Communications, who pick up the slack while I'm working on these podcasts, and to Troy Bloom for composing our theme music. You can hear more of Troy's creations on Facebook and Instagram at Troy Bloom Music. To connect with the podcast or suggest a future guest, follow us on social media or email us at podcast@fiorecommunications.com.